Hello, 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 everyone. Good afternoon. This is the ItCast, and I am your host, Nika Sherrell. The ItCast is our community outreach podcast that aims to increase diversity in conversations on health and sexuality. Through this work, we are creating a world where all people feel loved, honored, and respected. Check us out this October. We have our Global Sexual Health and Freedom Summit coming up, where we are creating a space where all people come together to celebrate humanity, diversity, and the liberation of sexual health globally. We have our tickets on Eventbrite, so please find us there, and we'll also post the link in the chat. Next, I'm really excited to tell you about our 10th anniversary pop-up celebration happening in downtown Oakland at Zanzi on October 1st from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. or until we'll figure that one out. But please come join us, celebrate a decade of this amazing work and being able to serve the community. And we look forward to seeing you there. Please visit us on Patreon to support the ItCast and learn more about our work at theitcast.com. Also, subscribe to this YouTube channel and share the work with your community. So this week's topic is Real Talk on Bisexuality. It's Bisexual Awareness Day, #Bi Week, and I'm really excited that we can be having this conversation and really shedding some light and some information on the LGBTQ community. So first, let me tell you why this day is important. It's important because bisexuals often get left out of the conversation when it comes to the LGBTQ conversation. There's a history of exclusion in not only the educational system, but also the mainstream media. And this is for all LGBTQ people. And it's worse for bisexuals because of the exclusion and often the invisibility. According to GLAAD, the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, bisexuals often get left out of history and are often referred to or remembered as lesbian or gay. So I'm probably going to reference GLAAD a couple of times, but basically, we want to look at what bisexuality is. That's the first step in this conversation. So I bet that there's a lot of thoughts about, oh, bisexuality, it's people who like men and women, it's people who are greedy. We'll talk about that later. But there's a lot of assumptions out there about bisexuals and how they operate and who they are. So first, let's look at the historic context. The word bisexual was first used to refer to sexual attractions to both men and women. And this was in 1892 by Charles Gilbert Chaddock. This, of course, is inside of a gender binary context. So like when we're talking about bisexuals and being attracted to men and women, this is before we actually got to this conversation around there being far more genders and sexual identities than just the binary construct of men and women. So the other thing I want to say on that note, and let me slow down, y'all, because we ain't got a guest today. So please post your questions, send us your info, let us know that you want to be a part of this conversation, and we will make sure to share your questions live on the air. The other thing I want to say about this is that sexuality and gender are not the same. And we often talk about them like they're the same. So when it comes to gender is a social construct. It's something that we've created to identify each other, and it's often based on the binary conversation of what your sex organs are. So stepping outside of that, we really get to look at what does it mean to have a gender that's different than the biology that I was assigned at birth. So we're talking about like whether or not my biology matches who I am and who I know I am inside. So there's a vast difference. And the truth is, we're going to discuss that on another episode. I was like, aha, something we got to give to our community. So definitely stick around for that one. And yeah, and let's just go ahead and continue. So I got this. This was really great. I was doing some research on bisexuality and everything. And even though like I know my lived experience, I really wanted to hear what else is going on out in the world. So according to WebMD, and this is an updated definition of bisexuality, bisexual means attracted to multiple genders, including those that are the same and different than your own. So I thought that was pretty cool. It opens up the gamut where we're not just looking at attraction to the masculine or the feminine, but we're looking deeper into spaces beyond that context. Whether you're looking at it as a spectrum or not, it's like there are so many different genders and sexuality types. So when I read that, I was like, huh, multiple genders. Like that could mean men, that could mean women, that could mean people who are in transition, that could mean people who are not in transition. And I don't even think I know all the gender types. So that's something that I will make sure that I have for you. I know I've heard that there are a minimum of 4: masculine, feminine, neuter, and common. And I'm going to have to look up those other 2 to make sure that that's something that that clicks for what we do here on the show. And then I also heard that there were up to 6 different gender identities. So definitely, if you're curious about it, look into it, do your research. I'm going to do my research and make sure that we are still providing the best content and information for you. So WebMD also made this really great distinction between bisexual and pansexual. So this was something that I thought was really cool because I think a lot of people may not know the phrases bisexual or demisexual or, anything outside of hetero and homosexual. And so pansexual, the distinction between bisexual and pansexual is that pansexual means you're attracted to all genders. So all gender types, all gender variances. It's something that works for you. And I think that's really beautiful. It's very accepting, it's very inclusive, and we all need love. Like we really, really, really do. So I also want to step back and spend a little more time looking at where bisexuals get left out of the conversation. So I see it happening very easily in the conversation of lesbian and gay. It's very popular. It's very easy to like, and I don't want to say it like this. It's not about like, it's who you are. It's really who you are. And bisexuals aren't just not choosing. Like I want to make that clear. And it's very easy to get caught up in that conversation. So I also want to put in that demisexual means that you only are sexually attracted to people that you are in love with or that you have a strong love connection with. Since that was something that we mentioned. And I also want to point out that we didn't have as much language for this sort of thing when I was growing up. So conversations around gender versus sexuality weren't necessarily at play. I identified as bisexual for a long time growing up, and it was true based on the paradigms that we have. And I still identify as bisexual. I think that it's something that's important for me no matter what relationship, style, or type that I'm in. And I got to learn some stuff about pansexual, so we'll figure that out too. Um, so, so looking at that, um, the conversation around bisexuals when I was growing up, and I mentioned this earlier, bisexuals are greedy. So like, that's the first one I heard. And I'm like, what do you mean bisexuals are greedy? Like, just because I'm attracted to people of multiple genders does not mean that I have to have people of multiple genders all at the same time. Like, it's one of those things where I think people just kind of think when you're not heterosexual, it's just a big orgy. And, maybe sometimes, but not all the time. um, so the other thing that I heard, and I also mentioned this, is that bisexuals need to pick a side. And, it's so frustrating to hear that and to be with that conversation. It's like, bisexuals are who they are. They exist that way. Like, I think about it, and when I was very young, I was like, why am I attracted to girls? Like, this isn't like, and I grew up in a space where it wasn't right. It wasn't accepted. There was a lot of religious connotation around, like, you can't be gay. God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, like all types of shaming and defaming experiences in that environment. So I didn't want anybody to know that I like girls. And it was I like girls too. Like, it's not that I didn't like boys. Boys are super cute, super attractive. And I had an affinity for women. There was just something about them. And I remember they used to have those, and they probably still do, but I'm not a teenager anymore. Those like online quizzes that tell you stuff about yourself. I took one and it was like, how gay are you? And it was so funny. I landed right smack dab in the middle. It was like, you're 50% straight, you're 50% gay. And I'm like, okay, there was no use of the term bisexual. Even in this thing that I think I participated in like the late 90s, there was no inclusion of that space. So I think that there is something to be said in the paradigm of like, you have to pick a side, because that's where people feel comfortable. It's like when we look at heteronormativity and it's like men, women, there are sides. Gay, straight, there are sides. It's like there's a dichotomy that we live in inside of our lives that does not allow for flexibility. It does not allow for change. It does not allow for experimentation. It doesn't allow for self-acceptance, for you to really get to a point where you know who you are and you love that and you don't. And we actually live in a world where we're not perpetuating shame and we're not putting people in boxes or, promoting fear. So I think that whole like need to pick a side thing is completely ridiculous. Okay, so this one. Like, I get excited that I get to share this with y'all because I don't know how many conversations out there like this are happening, but I'm really grateful that you're in this conversation with me. So before I move to the next one, I just want to check the comments. Make sure I'm not ignoring y'all. I know when I have guests on, sometimes it's hard for me to go see what you posted, follow along, and I really, really want to make sure that I'm like acknowledging you and in the fact that you're out there listening. So thank you so much. The next thing, so the next thing that I got really excited about, bisexuals are really just gay people in the closet. Okay, this sounds a lot like that pick a side thing. And it really doesn't, it doesn't work. So first off, bisexuals are not gay people in the closet. They're not dealing with whether or not to come out, it's often that people just don't acknowledge or see them. They see people in a same-sex relationship and all of a sudden they're gay. Or they're lesbian. They see people in an opposite sex relationship and they're straight. And that has nothing to do with whether or not you've come out. The other thing about it is there is a lot of fear in coming out of the closet. When I was young, oh my God. When I was young, I used to think that because I like boys too, I could get away with looking straight, or maybe I'll end up in a relationship where I'm passing for straight. Like that was a safety thing for me when I was young, because it's like, oh, well, there's this caveat and I can at least not be ridiculed forever if I marry a guy. And it took me a long time to realize that was not the answer. No matter how much you pretend to be straight, you can't be. And why pretend? So I'm not gay, but it was really important for me to put away that part of myself that felt ashamed to not look gay. So yeah, that I think is a big one. And as I mentioned before, it does come down to invisibility. One of the most common questions and assumptions that I get from people about bisexuality is about, can bi people turn straight? And I think that there's a context of, as I mentioned, invisibility and like you are who you are. But I want to be very clear that a bisexual person does not become straight just because they're in a heterosexual relationship. This isn't something that changes based on the day. Oh, and I want to put in, I almost forgot about this, but when we're talking about bisexuality, one of the things I discovered as we got more languaging around this is the conversation of being genderqueer. So I originally had this experience with bisexuality and thinking, oh, I'm bisexual, but really it's like some days I wake up and I feel more masculine, and some days I wake up and I feel more feminine. And I learned, it wasn't until I was an adult that I learned that there's a term for that. There's a few terms: genderqueer and gender fluid. And fluid means that you can move between the spaces. And when I discovered that, it opened up a whole new world of context, because I'm like, oh, I can be both bisexual and genderqueer. And I thought that was actually really, really cool, because I know a lot of bisexuals that are not genderqueer at all. In fact, I know a lot of lesbians that are like, I'm not a man, I'm a woman, my pronouns are she, her, and I like women. And I know a lot of women who appear to be butch, who also go she, her. And I know a lot of people who are not cisgender, who identify as gender fluid or as transgender or all these other things in these other spaces. And again, that has nothing to do with who we choose to make love with. So I think that that's something that's important. It's like, going back to bisexuality, no, you can't become straight, just as much as you can't change the gender that you feel inside, or you can't change your sex organs. Or I mean, actually, no, scratch that. We can do that now. My bad. So let's see some other things. Gender, sexuality, and relationship style are different for everybody. And one of the things that I look at is like the conversation of fidelity. So like monogamy is not fidelity. And there are multiple ways to love people. So there's monogamy, there's polyamory. I'm sure I'm missing some. And just because someone is bisexual doesn't mean that they are not monogamous or that they can't be in a long-term committed relationship with one person. These, I think, are very, very big misunderstandings about people who identify this way. For me, example, I identify as a genderqueer, monogamous, bisexual, maybe pansexual. I haven't gotten to really figure all that out yet. But you never know what you like until you try it. So I do believe in that. And I think that this conversation it's so powerful to get to have it. So I really hope that this brought some more information for you around what it means to be bisexual, what sexuality and gender look like and how they differ. I hope you got some great additional knowledge. And before we part, all right, I just wanted to make sure, please send us your questions. Feel free to post them on our social media, on our Instagram, our Facebook, our YouTube, and just stay in contact, stay in communication, and let us know what you in the community want to know about. We're focusing on health and sexuality and really healing. So whatever you want to know, whatever you want to learn, whatever you want to hear about, hit me up. Anywhere that you like, feel free to email us, go through the website, and just let us know because we want to keep providing good information. All right, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. I want you to know that you can find out a lot more about this information around gender and sexuality at GLAAD.org. That is the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation. You can also find out more at webmd.com, the hrc.org, which is the Human Rights Campaign, as well as the Trevor Project to support bisexual youth. I just got y'all that this show means a lot for me. So thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for helping make the world a better place through your listening. The ItCast is our community outreach podcast that aims to increase diversity in conversations on health and sexuality. Through this work, we're creating a world where all people feel loved, honored, and respected. Please check out more of our work, our events coming up this fall. We have the Global Sexual Health and Freedom Summit, where we are creating a safe space where all people come together to embrace humanity, diversity, and the celebration of sexual health globally. Come experience freedom, empowerment, and ownership of sacred sexuality. I just want to plug in here. One of our main initiatives is to end gender-based violence on the planet. So if you love this work, share this work, because we really are on a mission to heal. You can find tickets for the Global Sexual Health and Freedom Summit on Eventbrite. Please search. You can search under Nika Sherelle. That's NIKACHERRELLE. Or just type in the Global Sexual Health and Freedom Summit. You can also visit us on Patreon to support the ItCast and learn more about our work at theitcast.com and nikasherelles.com. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, share the work with your community, and thank you again for joining us today for this powerful and moving episode. I hope it does you well. Thank you. Till next time.